Thank you very much for that. I guess what will help Vodafone Idea is the bank funding. They've been looking to raise 25,000 crore rupees. And despite the promoters infusing money, the large QIP funding infusion that they did last year, and even the spectrum dues getting converted into the equity and the government owning 49% now, the banks have been reluctant to lend that 20,000 crore to Vodafone Idea. So that is something. So maybe in terms of a government support, the government can nudge, the banks to go ahead and lend that 20,000. And second would be, I think, Supreme Court relief. In the past, the Supreme Court, the Apex Court, had rejected all applications regarding any sort of an AGR relief. But now that we have a new Chief Justice, Mr. Govt, I think once again, these shock and awe kind of statements might nudge the Supreme Court to grant that much needed relief for Vodafone Idea. If it doesn't come through, as Vodafone Idea says, it might just go under.
So, yeah, it's very, very interesting because basically Vodafone Idea has thrown the ball into the government's court, saying either you help us with additional
the government can't do anything. They have 49%.
Precisely.
So they can't infuse further money. They don't want to convert more dues into equity and then make it a PSU.
Exactly.
They want it to remain as a private entity.
Exactly. So the question is, who is going to bring in the funding?
It's the banks.
Whether it's additional equity funding or debt funding, and debt funding is not coming. So,
debt funding is not coming. So it's either the banks or then some sort of a Supreme Court relief. But Prakash Diwan is now joining in. Prakash, we've spoken for the last so many years now on Vodafone Idea and the fact that it's struggling, it needs more money, it needs more relief. It's always one step forward, two steps back. And now this, shock and awe kind of statements coming in from Vodafone Idea.
Yeah, definitely looks like the last straw. But, interestingly, this is happening at a time where they seem to be kind of getting their act together in terms of the operation, at least. I'm not saying that they are out of the woods by any measure, but in terms of expansion on 5G, I mean, as a Vodafone consumer, I've been getting calls about 5G introduction in certain places and, how things are so positive and all of that. And on the ground, if you see, Bharti's been talking about making noises that there should not be the spectrum charges that are due should not get waived and all that, because they also probably smelling the opportunity to get this big player out. And which in the first place the government never wanted. So it always wanted it to be a 3 or 4 player market. And that's what Vodafone probably seems to be counting on in a big way, that the government will want it to continue playing some sort of a, third fiddle or whatever. So, interesting setup, but this seems like the beginning of the end of this issue. How it gets resolved, I don't know, but it does seem to have come to an end of sorts. There's nothing else left beyond this declaration or this intent being announced.
Okay, the government so far, at least, has been committed to maintaining a 3+1 market construct. Statements coming in from Vodafone Idea seeking urgent relief. The stock price right now is 7.5%, so it's reacting positively. It's not reacting to the statement. The risk that it might just go under, it might have to reach out to the NCLT and file for insolvency. So that's not what the market is, the stock price is reacting to. The stock price is perhaps reacting to some sort of a relief coming through for Vodafone Idea. Hopeful. Let's pull up IndaStars as well. That's the other stock indexed to Vodafone Idea's futures. And IndaStars will also come up.
I'm still a little curious. I'm not sure what sort of support Vodafone is expecting from the government, because, nudging banks to lend has its own huge moral, implication and question mark, and we don't know if the government would want to go down that route. The only thing is it's catch-22. The government's own 49% stake gets written down to 0 if indeed this has to go the NCLT way.
There are no good choices here. All bad choices, but it is what it is, and they'll have to kind of sort of deal with it. Prakash, thank you very much for that, and it's sort of good getting that quick word in, and we'll get you more opinion as we can sort of go along on this exclusive story that we.
That Shiju PV, managing partner, IndiaLaw LLP, is now with us on the show. Shiju, just 24 hours back, we understand that Vodafone Idea filed a fresh petition at the Supreme Court seeking a 30,000 crore waiver on the AGR dues. And now it's written to the government, talking about its survival, that without financial support, the survival of Vodafone Idea is at stake. How do you expect, what can the government do in its capacity. It already has a 49% stake. And two, how do you expect this to play out?
I'm doubtful whether my voice would be clear. Yes, I'm traveling. See, Supreme Court, Vodafone Idea has approached on the ground of for waiver of penalty and interest. But the chances are moderate, I would say, because there's already a clear-cut Supreme Court order. And even government also stated that even though government is holding equity shares in the VI after conversion, but it is already stated that there's a binding precedent from the Supreme Court. So chances of getting a little moderate, but still on the basis of equity or a consideration saying that considering the financial stress and strain and likely closure of the aspect and overall economy and all, Supreme Court has to change the stand. If it is lenient, it may get, but I would say it's a very moderate chance because Supreme Court has already clearly stated. And government stand also has a lot to do with what is the stand government is also taking on this issue.
Okay. All right. Shiju, thank you very much for joining in with that quick take and quick perspective. Let's see, it's a developing story. We will see if the government has any response to offer in the coming days. Thank you for joining in. Well, let's move on to the other big